Social Emotional Domain of Early Childhood Education by Azalea Gallardo, Brandy Grays, Latrina Richardson Johnson, and Danielle Kuntz. We hope that after viewing this slideshow, you will have a better understanding of social emotional domain and how it helps shape children's lives. When you think about children and the social emotional domain, you may ask, what is social emotional development? Social emotional development refers to the development of skills that children need to have successful relationships with others and be able to understand social situations. Social emotional development includes several different aspects. It entails self management, self awareness, responsible decision making, relationship skills, and social awareness. Children of all ages have developmental milestones that show what a child should be able to do by a certain age. It is important to remember that all children develop at their own rate, but these lists are just to give a generalization of what should be expected at that specific age. Children that are 3 years old should be able to understand the idea of taking turns, but do not always do it. They may develop fears, they may have conversations with themselves, they begin to play make believe with themselves and others. They play near other children and may join other children while playing. Children that are 4 years old should be able to recognize a change in their emotions. They may go from laughing to crying. They may brag and stretch the truth about their ability to do something. They participate in more group activities but may fail to wait their turn. They show more independence. They like to pretend they are other people and play dress up. They develop peer friendships and may have a favorite friend. Children that are 5 and 6 years old become more independent. A 5-year-old child is able to share, take turns, and play in a group. Play is more involved. Children use props and costumes. They also show a great deal of affection to small children. They follow directions. They have good control over their emotions. They are proud of their achievements and like to share it. A 6-year-old child has friendships that may be unstable. These children can be unkind to peers. They need to win and may change the rules to suit themselves. They may be hurt by criticism, blame, or punishment and start to show more interest in adults and peers outside of the family. They will tell you what he or she is going to do. At this age, children may be able to clean their room, including making their bed. Children can be rigid, demanding, and unable to adapt, and increasingly aware that others may have different feelings than they do. This chart details the socialization of emotional competence. There are lots of things to watch for in the classroom when thinking about social and emotional skills. The following slides will give ideas of what social emotional skills children in preschool and school-aged children may be displaying in the classroom. In the preschool setting, one will often observe a variety of social emotional skills from each student. Each student may also be at a different level in their social emotional development. One will most likely witness social interaction, both positive and negative, and self-regulation. Social interactions can include sharing toys, listening and following directions, and acceptance of peers. On the negative side, one may also witness aggression, which can be verbal, physical, or both, and neglect of peers. There is also social interaction between the student and the teacher. Often, this relationship is similar to the child parent relationship. Peer relationships and friendships will also begin to start forming. Self-regulation can include the inability to calm down after an exciting or upsetting event, or the ability to regulate one's emotions in exciting or upsetting situations. One may also witness enthusiasm and or engagement in learning. Enthusiasm typically displays itself as a student having interest and motivation in an activity, and engagement will display itself as the ability to focus, persist, and regulate oneself. Pro-social behavior is one social skill that preschool children are starting to display. Being pro-social means voluntarily assisting others out of concern for one another, also known as caring, sharing, and helping. Comforting an upset peer is a great example of pro-social behavior. A student will comfort a friend out of concern for them, not in a selfish way. As the student develops, they will comfort in more advanced ways, such as using words instead of just giving a hug. Aggression or other challenging behaviors are a negative social skill that most students have at some point, and some children have more tendency to show these behaviors. Children are more likely to display relational aggression, that is, being mean and excluding others, such as saying, "You can't come to my party," when they have a difficult temperament, are impulsive, irritable, or easily distracted. It can also display itself as automatically reading actions in a negative way, assuming that someone tripped them on purpose instead of by accident. Sense of self is another social skill that will be observed in a preschool classroom. Preschool students evaluate themselves differently in different areas, such as being good at sports, but poor at math. They also have an all or nothing view. They have trouble thinking they can be sometimes nice or sometimes mean. According to Bredenkamp and Koppel, more recent research suggests that preschool age children may react negatively to the possibility of failure. How children feel about the reason for success or failure can determine how they may complete a task, such as a complex puzzle. Emotional competence in preschool age children is often displayed by children being able to more appropriately describe their emotions and how they are feeling through facial expressions, gestures, words, and symbols. They can also begin to identify others' emotions and express their own emotions more acceptably, such as coming to the teacher and talking about a problem instead of hitting another student. Preschool students also begin developing a conscience. They are able to display moral emotions such as guilt and shame. Another way conscience can be displayed is the ability of a child to refrain from doing something that is against the rules even when no one is watching, such as not taking a cookie from a plate. One may also observe children coping with stress and the resilience that they have. Stress can teach children how to cope and deal with difficult situations, but they need support from adults. Many things can cause stress in children, including home life or the inability to separate pretend from reality. Children may become anxious or angry and will display either fighting or fleeing from the stressful situation. Some children show resilience or the ability to bounce back from intense stress, such as poverty. Positive and supporting adults help children to develop resilience. While promoting social and emotional development, one may observe these skills improving. Creating a sense of community and giving social time will allow the students to work together and develop social relationships with peers. Teaching how to express feelings appropriately is important when one observes students having a situation that could cause harsh feelings. Children will often use sociodramatic play to act out their feelings. Social development includes the ability to form and sustain relationships with adults as well as peers and engaging cooperatively, getting along, and forming friendships. Some struggles that might be observed in a classroom would display as a student being overly shy, aggressive, or unable to regulate emotions and behaviors. Pro-social behavior will also be observed in the school age or kindergarten classroom. One should be able to observe students cooperating, resolving conflicts, following rules and adult requests, being helpful, showing guilt when an expectation is broken, using negotiation to solve problems, and organizing, directing, and sustaining interactions. One may observe more complex interactions with less conflict amongst peers. Sometimes kindergarten students can display negative behaviors, including being oppositional and testing limits. They may also revert to tantrums or acting out for attention or other reasons. Sociability will also be observed. Cooperative play will often be observed in a school-age classroom, displaying itself as working together toward a common goal, such as building a tower together. Parallel play will be displayed as a child playing next to another child, but not necessarily with them or toward a common goal. Solitary play will be displayed as a student playing independently without regard of other children. Often one will observe students playing with similar peers. This often means students playing with same-sex peers with similar likes and dislikes. Self-concept is becoming better established in kindergarten. School-age students are often learning optimists and give full effort when presented with a new challenge. One may observe a student comparing themselves to peers, usually one peer at a time. At this age, one will also observe students internalizing adult evaluation and showing pride with positive evaluations. School-age students have more emotional understanding and empathy than preschool students. One may witness a student judging the cause of an emotion or predicting consequences. For example, a student may say if someone is mad, they might hit, or if someone is happy, they might share. One can also observe students making amends with peers after a negative situation and showing acceptance of peers. Of all kindergartners, about 3% are highly aggressive. These students are mostly boys and may be observed showing physical or verbal aggression and having a limited ability to show empathy or see something from someone else's viewpoint. Self-regulation of emotions can also be observed. One may observe a student refraining from doing something, not blurting out an answer, or performing an undesirable task, such as ending playtime and beginning cleanup time. Some students may also struggle to follow directions. Assessment of social and emotional skills in early childhood education is not very easy to complete. There are so many factors that lead to a child's skill set in this area, such as home environment, culture, parenting style, and assessment setting. Because of the difficulty in achieving authentic and accurate results, there is no gold standard of social and emotional assessment. Teachers are thought to have the greatest advantage in assessing students' social and emotional skills. According to Kinziora, Weisberg, G., and Dusenberry, teachers are well positioned to assess social and emotional skills because they are familiar with children's behavior in an important environment, and teachers are generally skilled raters because they know a large number of children with whom to compare any one student's skills or behaviors. That being said, how do teachers go about assessing social emotional learning in their students? Well, there are a number of strategies teachers can employ. Direct observation is a rather straightforward strategy for assessment. The teacher will observe a student for a certain amount of time. It is important when using direct observation that the teacher understands what kind of information he or she is seeking. Depending on the goal of the observation, a teacher may employ one of 4 different direct observation methods. Anecdotal records are especially proficient in assessing skills that are difficult to assess with more formal methods. Therefore, using anecdotal records to assess SEL skills is definitely appropriate. Teachers will simply look for predetermined skills in the student population. When the skill is exhibited, the teacher will record the event and keep it for interpretation. Very similar to an anecdotal record, a running record is more detailed and represents a sequence of behaviors rather than a single event. Time sampling is designed to determine the frequency of a behavior. According to Gulo, This works well when observing children with difficult behaviors. A teacher can use time sampling to determine how often a behavior is exhibited. Event sampling is similar to time sampling, but the goal of this observation is to determine the context in which a behavior occurs. Teachers often use this method of direct observation to determine if there are environmental triggers to negative or positive behavior. Along with direct observation methods, teachers can assess students using teacher-developed or commercially developed tools. Teacher-developed tools are often very accurate in assessing the SEL skills of students in their classrooms. Because most teachers know what is developmentally appropriate for the age group that they teach, these tools often help assess behaviors that are developmentally appropriate and occurring in the classroom. However, if a teacher is unfamiliar with how to structure these tools, the results may not be valid. The most common types of teacher-developed assessments are checklists and rating scales. Checklists are easy for teachers to develop. They simply make a list of the SEL skills that they would like to see exhibited by each child and check it off once the child has exhibited the behavior. This checklist, adapted in 2006 by the Early Childhood Direction Center, is a pure checklist. The teacher looks for the skill, and when it is observed, she simply marks down the date. Other checklists may add rating scales. Rating scales aren't used to simply denote the existence or non-existence of a behavior. A rating scale is designed to tell you to what degree the behavior is occurring. Look at this checklist. The teacher will use this tool to check for the behavior as well as give a score of 1, needs improvement, 2, developing as expected, and 3, advanced development. While both rating scales and checklists help teachers assess SEL skills, there are some drawbacks to these tools. Both checklists and rating scales can be especially subjective. Who determines if a student is developing at an advanced rate or as expected? Will teacher 1 and teacher 2 come up with the same rating? Because there are no details added to either tool, there is no later interpretation of the exhibited behavior. There are many commercially developed tools available for the assessment of social and emotional skills. Most of these tools are not completed using observation. The majority of these tools use performance-based criteria to assess students. Others elicit an interview from teachers, parents, or even the students themselves. We will discuss the few tools that use observation as the assessment method. Most early childhood curriculums will come with an assessment component. Some are designed to be manually written and others are computer-based. Each of these curriculums have one thing in common. They are tightly linked to the goals of the curriculum. Curriculum-based assessments excel at assessing what the students are learning. There aren't usually gaps in what is being taught in the classroom and what is being assessed. One popular curriculum-based assessment is Teaching Strategies Gold, designed to work with creative curriculum. Core Advantage is developed by the HighScope Educational Research Foundation. Core Advantage originally started out as a curriculum-based assessment tool designed to work alongside the HighScope curriculum. However, it's now available to all early childhood programs birth to kindergarten. A program does not have to follow the HighScope curriculum to use this assessment tool. Core Advantage uses direct observation to drive assessment. Teachers are required to record anecdotal notes for students in 34 categories, 8 of which fall under social and emotional development. Using the anecdotal note and the rating scale provided in the assessment, teachers score students according to their developmental level. Students assessed with Core Advantage are not compared to one another. The goal of the assessment is to see growth over the 3 scoring periods completed each school year. The Minnesota Preschool Affect Checklist is another tool driven by direct observation. However, the administration of this checklist is more structured than Core Advantage. Teachers are required to observe a student for 5 consecutive minutes per day for 4 days to determine one of the following scores: affect, involvement, impulse control, reactions to arousing problem situations, unusual behavior, skills in leading and joining, empathy, and prosocial behavior. Each score must be completed for the assessment to yield a complete picture of a student's SEL development. One of the more popular versions of this tool is the shortened and revised version that was modified by Dr. Suzanne Denham of George Mason University. The Preschool Self-Regulation Assessment is an observational assessment designed to measure a student's ability to self-regulate. Unlike Core Advantage or the MPAC, the preschool self-regulation checklist needs to be completed in an individual setting with the student. Teachers are required to observe a student's responses to a number of scripted activities which lead to a determination about the student's ability to self-regulate. Like Core Advantage, the Battelle Developmental Inventory is designed to assess students comprehensively. According to Denham, G., and Hamring, the Battelle Developmental Inventory includes assessments related to adult interaction, expression of feelings and affects, self-concept, peer interaction, coping, and social role. If only seeking an assessment of a student's social and emotional development, the entire interaction with the student takes about 15 minutes. Scoring of the Battelle Developmental Inventory is standardized in nature, producing age norms, percentiles, and T-scores. This video will be used to complete the assessment that follows. Because assessment via Core Advantage is built on direct observation, anecdotal notes, and authentic behavior, this assessment method is appropriate for examining the social and emotional skills of the children in the video. More than the other available options, Core Advantage creates ease of use for teachers because there are no environmental constructs required and a broad range of SEL skills can be recorded. The first step in the assessment is to take an anecdotal record. This is best accomplished when the teacher is actively engaged with students during a free choice time. Remember to follow the guidelines laid out in the text, Understanding Assessment and Evaluation in Early Childhood Education. The anecdotal record should come from direct observation, and the recording should be completed as soon as possible after the event. Multiple events should not be recorded in the record, only one single event. The record should be rich with contextual and supportive information so that the record is properly interpreted. The interpretation of the event should not be done at the same time as the recording of the event. The first step, after watching the video, the child Devin became the target of the assessment. He was first recorded exhibiting behavior that demonstrated skills in the area of relationship building. The anecdotal record for this observation reads, in choice time in the house area, Devin works with Jared and Chaselyn. Devin and Jared get their hair cut by Chaselyn, and Jared and Devin take phone calls while at the beauty parlor. Devin is then observed showing an understanding of social skills. The anecdotal record for this observation reads, during choice time in the house area, Devin engages in 2 telephone conversations at his job. He realistically speaks on the phone as if there is someone on the other end. Devin is observed using appropriate pauses and facial expressions. Lastly, Devin shows an understanding of emotions. The anecdotal record for this observation reads, during choice time in the house area, Devin becomes frustrated with the number of phone calls he has to take. He says, they're making me mad. Now that the teacher has written accurate anecdotal records, it is now time to interpret them using the assessment tool, in this case, Core Advantage. Referring to the scoring guide associated with the category Building Relationships with Other Children, we can compare the anecdotal record to guidelines as well as other records that fall under the same score. After reviewing the guidelines, Devin was scored a 5 in this category. During the observation, he was playing collaboratively with 2 or more children and contributed ideas during play. Now it's time to interpret the next record. This record aligns with the category Knowledge of Self and Others under Social Studies and Core Advantage. During the observation, Devin was using the telephone at his workplace. Here, he was using pretend play to act out a community role. According to the guidelines, Devin would score a level 3 in this category. The last of the 3 anecdotal records taken on Devin involves emotions. At one point in the video, it appears that he becomes frustrated while with talking on the phone. He says, "They're making me mad." Because Devin shows frustration but doesn't act out in a physical manner, he shows an ability to control his emotions. The guidelines go on to further explain that children who score a level 5 in this category are able to exercise self-control by using appropriate words and actions rather than inappropriate physical expression. In this case, Devin was scored at a level 5. How might teachers facilitate developmental growth for children across various ages and skill levels? Teachers are required to include children in all aspects of their instruction. They are to also use real-life examples to the daily routine in class. Class and assessment should be based on children's strengths, needs, and interests. Teachers should establish relationships with families, students, and help students build their relationships with other students and adults. Teachers will make sure students are learning in a healthy environment and that they are developing relationships with other students. Children should also be allowed to interact and learn with other children. Teachers will make sure that children are able to build social relationships that will help them interact with other children and adults. They will make sure that the students are put into small groups that will help them build social skills necessary for communication with others. Teachers are responsible for making sure that children are learning in a healthy and stable environment. They should provide real-world experiences and include children in discussions, idea building, projects, and keep them involved in every aspect of the class. Many people have asked how to support social emotional development. There are several ways to do so. Some suggestions are listed here. This is an example of an activity that can be done to help children learn social emotional development. In this activity, the children are able to make decisions about what would be the appropriate behavior to do in each situation. This is another activity that can be done daily to help children learn to express their feelings. It teaches different emotions and shows how a face may look that is expressing that emotion. Social emotional development is often an overlooked domain. However, as additional research occurs in this area, its importance continues to grow. Without social and emotional development, many children are unable to grow up to live productive, enjoyable lives.